everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to Mystical Munchies featuring the Marvel Eat the Universe cookbook. The entree last week was Phoenix's hot chicken and egg oyakodon, and the chicken actually turned out to be pretty good even if the rice was a little spicy. This week, we're on to the dessert, Spider-Man's New York City Cheesecake. First up, let's tell the story. Whether you are a Peter fan or a Miles fan, this New York cheesecake celebrates the city both web-slingers call home. You don't have to be bitten by a radioactive spider to make it, just follow the instructions. I wanted to give a nod to Miles' Caribbean heritage, so guava is used to create a web insignia on top. It also happens to be a great combination with the richness of the cheesecake, just like a Peter and Miles team-up. Well, the ingredients are waiting for us at the table, so let's move in that direction. It's not really coming through in this presentation, but we are going for a three-part split here. In order to make the crust, we need 2 cups of toasted bagel crumbs. I'm using graham cracker crumbs instead. Half a cup, or quarter cup, half a stick of unsalted butter melted, and a tablespoon of sugar. For the filling, we need 2 pounds of cream cheese, which is supposed to be at room temperature, 8 ounces of sour cream, 1 1/4 cups of sugar, a teaspoon of vanilla extract, the zest from a lime, a quarter cup of all-purpose flour, 5 large eggs, and a pinch of salt. To make the guava topping, we need a cup of guava nectar, the juice from a lime. I'm going to use lime juice instead, a teaspoon of agar-agar powder, and then theoretically black and red food gel coloring, but we're not going to use either of the food coloring. You'll probably hear the oven chirping because we're bringing the oven up to 350. Now, you might have noticed a small problem. We have graham crackers, and we need to get to graham cracker crumbs. How are we going to do that? The solution is waiting for us in the kitchen, so let's move in there and start putting this recipe together. If you guessed the food processor, you would be correct. It would also help if I turned the food processor controls toward me. So we're going to take the graham cracker crumbs. We're going to take the graham crackers, I should say, and put them in the food processor. Then once I get the box broken down and thrown away, we're going to stick the lid on, lock it in place. There we go. Come on. This lid does not want to go for me here. There we go. And now, a 5-second warning before I turn the food processor on, as it is going to be loud. Okay. Alright, that will work nicely, turning our graham crackers into graham cracker crumbs. So now let's bring our springform pan into shot, and we'll start putting this recipe together. Did not expect that kettle to be that loud, but you probably are hearing it in the background. I've got a kettle of water set to boil. So now what we're going to do while that's boiling is we're actually going to get our springform pan. We're going to spray the sides and bottom of that down, and then line the sides with parchment paper. And the rate I'm going, I'm probably going to need another can of cooking spray here. Yep, it's feeling like that one is almost empty. We're going to go ahead and throw that can out. And we'll go for our new can of cooking spray. Okay. Alright, now we're going to line that down with parchment paper. That is not sticking as well as I would have liked it to. But it seems like it's sticking enough, I think. Actually, let me see. No, I think that's fine. Okay. So now we'll bring the springform pan out of shot and bring a medium bowl in shot. I'm trying to get things moving as much as I can here because I eventually am going to be going in to the game room to continue my 1985 replay of season ticket baseball tonight. So now we're going to take all of the ingredients for the crust. Okay, we're going to lift the blade out. Then we'll get our 2 cups of crumbs. This whole thing might just be 2 cups. Oh, shoot, hang on. Looks like I had some fall out the middle. Actually, I'm just going to pour the whole thing in. I think that's looking like it's going to be around 2 cups by the time I get everything poured out. So that's our graham cracker crust. Then we need the butter. I'll grab a spatula so I can scrape more of that out. Okay, I think that's probably as much as I'm going to get. And our tablespoon of sugar. The sugar can stay down. As now we're going to go ahead and mix all of that up. And what are we looking for consistency? Just combine it. That's probably about as much as we're going to get, and I've still got some pieces of the graham crackers that I didn't crumble up as much as I thought I would. Probably nothing that can be done there. So now we're going to bring the prepared pan back into shot. Then we're going to pour the crumbs in and pack it down as tightly as we can. Okay. Whoa. And I've got a measuring cup here that I'm going to use to press it down as tightly as I can. And I'm just looking at the water off shot right now. And that looks like it's getting near to its boiling point, so that should be shutting off. That should be shutting off momentarily. There it goes. Okay, and I think that is probably pressed down as tightly as I can get it. That's the graham cracker mixture. So now we're going to put the crust mixture in the oven for 7 minutes. I'll move that out of my way. We'll set a timer here for 7 minutes. And then we'll come back in a second with the stand mixer and shot. We've got the stand mixer and shot for the next step of the recipe. So now we're going to take our 2 pounds of cream cheese. I've got 4 of these 8-ounce packages. Since that gets me to 2 pounds. Probably still a little bit too cool, but as time is a little bit on the tight side tonight, I don't have time to be picky with it. Because my goal is to get to some of these longer steps of the recipe, and then while longer stuff is happening, I'm going to go into the game room for 1985 for tonight's block between the Twins and the Yankees. Honestly, I probably should have done the block this morning. But I've been wanting to get Fall Classic back to the channel for a little while now. So that's why I decided to do Fall Classic instead. But my impressions of Fall Classic so far, as I mentioned in that stream, are pretty favorable so far. So, yeah, things have been, like I said, I like Fall Classic. It seems like everything's gonna flow for that pretty well, so I'm not too worried about bringing that back to the channel at some point and potentially adding to my collection. I'm still looking at everything I would need to do to add the 1960s seasons to my collection. But I'm getting more than a little ahead of myself. Alright, it looks like the crust is just about ready to come out. I'm still working on getting the cream cheese into the stand mixer bowl. And I think the oven timer is going to go off is about to go off here, so I will kill that. Once I get the last of the cream cheese in, I'm going to take the crust out of the oven. Oops. Jarred the camera there, didn't mean to. There we are. I'm going to put something down to set that on. And then we'll put that, and then we'll put the crust aside to cool. So I'm going to move the camera for just a second so I can get into the oven. Whoa. Okay. Alright. Now we've got the cream cheese in. So now we want to add the sour cream, which is going to be a cup of that. Yeah, this is probably fine. Go for a little more, I think. Yeah. That should be enough. That can get out of my way. We want the sugar next, which is going to be 1 1/4 cups of that. One, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I was using my 1/4 cup because I'm able to get that in the canister very easily. Actually, I need the quarter cup back out because I'm going to need that for the flour in actually later this step. And we want the vanilla. And the lime zest. That's going to hit the garbage, and now we're going to blend that until it's smooth. Hopefully, I'm not liking what I feel. Feels like the cream cheese is still a little bit too cold. Whoa! Seems like it's fine. Let me see if I can lock that down so I can wash my hands with it. I got a bit of sour cream. Actually, I got a bit of sour cream or the cream cheese on it, either way. Let's actually scrape down the sides a little bit here as well so we can get a little bit wider incorporation into the mix. I'll bring my spoon rest out here as well. We'll lock that back down. Okay, that looks like it smoothed out pretty well. So now we'll unlock that and lift that back up. Because now we want to add the flour, and we're going to mix that on low until it's just incorporated. And now the quarter cup can go over to the dishes for good because now I don't need it. Whoa. Flour went flying on me, but not horribly. Try to mix that back in. Okay, now it's just incorporated. So now we're going to add So now one at a time, we're going to add in the eggs and the pinch of salt. So we're going to add in a little bit of salt. That's probably more than a little bit that we want. But we'll start adding the eggs in one at a time. There's one. And we'll beat it in. Two. We'll give the pan a quick scrape as well here. Three. Because I didn't have the lock pressed all the way. Four. And here comes the fifth and last egg. And I feel pieces of shell starting to break away, which is not a good sign when I'm doing anything involving eggs. Okay. All right. So now we're all done with the stand mixer. I'll see if I can scrape the beater bar down a bit to get more of the filling back in the bowl. And then we'll bring the springform pan that should have had plenty of time to cool back in shot. Things are going to happen here in a little bit of a weird order, but there's a reason why it's happening this way. So what we're going to do here is we're going to wrap the outside of the prepared springform pan with aluminum foil without tearing it. Probably going to have to wrap it in a couple layers, well, in a couple pieces to get it all the way around. Okay, that is not holding. That's very irritating. That's the parchment paper. Okay, that wrap isn't exactly holding very well either. Well, seems like it's holding a little bit better now. Okay, now it's holding. Now it's not. Great. So now what we need to do is, now you would take this and fill it and put it into a baking dish. But this is where it starts to get weird, because the only thing I could find that would be big enough to take this was one of my stock pots. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take the water we boiled earlier And we're going to pour this in to make a water bath. Okay, so there's our water bath. We're going to take our springform pan and put this in here. Actually, this isn't working as well as I hoped it would. I think the other problem is this was a tight fit with just the springform pan. Now with the aluminum foil in here, I don't think it's going to fit. But let's see if I can channel my mother's stubborn streak and make it fit. Okay, it's not pretty, but it looks like it'll go. So what we're going to do here, and I'm going to have a lot of eyes on this. Now we're going to pour the filling. Now we're going to pour the filling into the middle. Hopefully this is going to pour well. Let's find out. Oh yeah, that's pouring just fine. We'll grab our spatula that we were using earlier to scrape more of the filling out. Alright, I think that's as much of the filling out as we can get. I have a very bad feeling about this stock pot going in the oven, but we're going to go with it here. So here's what's going to happen, since I'm not going to come back to this on camera tonight. Because I've got to get into the game room so I can continue on 1985 season tickets. But believe me, during that stream, I will have eyes on this as much as I possibly can. Mostly because I'm nervous about that stock pot going into the oven. So what we're going to do is we're going to bake this until the middle of the cheesecake is slightly jiggly for about 1 1/4 hours. Then I'm going to turn the oven off and leave the door slightly open. Fortunately for me, the oven is already going to prop open, so that won't be a problem. Then then I'm going to cool it in the oven for an hour. After that, the cake will come out of the oven and the water bath, and then I'll release the ring and the parchment paper from the pan. We'll let that cool on a wire rack. Then it's going to go in the refrigerator after being covered in plastic wrap to refrigerate overnight. And then we'll come back to this tomorrow morning. So I'm going to put this in the oven. We're going to set the timer here for, that would be 75 minutes. There we go. And then we will come back to this whole thing, as I've walked you guys through it already. I'm going to go in the game room for season ticket tonight. We'll come back to this tomorrow morning. The cheesecake's been cooling overnight. We'll take a look at that when we get into a later step of the recipe. Our next order of business takes us to the guava topping. We're going to start that off by combining the guava nectar, which I've got right here. We need a cup of that. Hopefully it's not fizzy. I don't like that it's opening in a an aluminum can like you get a can of pop in. Seems like it's not going to do anything crazy. Could probably just take a couple of swallows of this just to see what it tastes like, since I'm now kind of curious. And then our 2 tablespoons of lime juice. Normally, you would use a juice from a lime in this recipe, but since I tossed out the lime after zesting it last night and I don't have juicing equipment here, we're just going to use the lime juice instead. And as usual, I need to get that ridiculous spigot out of there. Then we're going to pour in the 2 tablespoons of lime juice. Easy does it. Give that a quick wipe up. Then I'll give that a little bit of a mix up. This one should do. We've got that in a medium saucepan, so now we're going to bring that to we're going to set that over medium heat and bring it to a simmer, so we don't want it to be boiling yet. While we're watching on that, though, I can go ahead and put some of these ingredients back away. While we're doing that, I have the bottom of the springform pan that I've released. So we're going to spray that vigorously. We're going to spray that rather liberally with nonstick spray. There are a few artistic steps that we're going to skip here using the food coloring, since I'm not using the food coloring. So yes, we'll be able to skip a couple of these steps. And since the simmer is important enough, we are going to watch that in real time here on the channel. So here on video. So we'll go ahead and spray this. I'll spray that over the sink. Okay. I can put that off to the side for the time being and put the cooking spray back up. Okay, so again, we don't want that to be boiling. We want that to come to a simmer. And the reason we're going to watch the simmer in real time is because there's something that needs to happen as soon as it hits a simmer. So I'm just going to be keeping an eye on this. Let's make sure I've got the right burner on, because I've done that plenty of times here, not just on Mystical Munchies, but in cooking in general, where I've turned on the wrong burner. And while we're waiting, we'll take a taste of the nectar, because there's barely a couple swallows left. So let's give this a taste and see what I think of it. Okay, I do kind of like that actually. It reminds me a bit of pineapple juice. It is very sweet though, as you can probably guess, so be aware of that. Okay, looks like it's just starting to bubble up. I'll give this another quick mix up. I definitely don't want it to boil though, because if it's boiled, I've gone too far. Okay. We're still waiting for that to simmer. And yep, I do have the right burner on. I was just giving that another quick check. Again, I've done that plenty of times before. I definitely hear the heat going now that I'm listening to it, which is also a good thing. Okay, definitely starting to bubble up more. Okay. Right, again, I definitely don't want to start the rolling boil because at that point I've gone too far. I'm going to get the agar-agar ready, though, for when I'm ready to... This does not want to tear... There we go. I'm going to start getting the agar-agar ready, as I mentioned, for once we're ready to add it here, which I think we're getting pretty close to at this point. Yep, we've definitely got bubbles starting to form. So we'll give that probably about another minute or two more, and then we'll add the agar-agar powder into it. Yeah, actually it's starting to boil. It's starting to boil now, so I'd better get the powder in there now. So you got the tablespoon of agar-agar right here. Then that can go back up. And I need the whisk so I can whisk this vigorously. Right, I think we got all of the powder mixed in there, so I'll let that simmer for about another minute. I'm going to set a kitchen timer for that. So again, we're just, since this is slow enough time, we're just going to watch this in real time. We aren't going to watch the next step in real time, though. Alright, there's the timer on the microwave. That can come off the heat. And then we'll go ahead and let that cool slightly for about another 3 minutes. And then we'll come back. Actually, it would help. Hang on. Let's make sure I get the right timer set. We'll come back after about another 3 minutes. This next step may be a step that's expecting to have the cutesy-wootsy art stuff with it, and I might have some problems with that. So what I'm going to do here is at this point you'd be pouring some of the guava mixture into a measuring cup, adding the black food coloring and mixing that up. Then pouring that into a squeeze bottle. Then you'd add the red food coloring to the rest of that and then stir to combine. At that point you'd pour the red mixture into the sprayed pan until almost filled, and then use the black mixture to draw a spiral over top of that, and then make a web pattern with that. But what we're going to do here is, instead of doing all of that, we're going to take the guava mixture and pour it straight into the pan. Hopefully not having the art stuff with it. Oh boy, yep, I was afraid of that happening. Yeah.
You got a pan?
Overflowed just a little bit. Let's see if I can pour this out. Actually, I'm going to see if I can pour this without causing more overflow. Probably not, but let's get at it from this side and see what I can do with it. Seems like it worked. I'll scrape off a little bit of the... I'll scrape off a bit of the pan for what I can get. Now we're gonna let that cool. Set at room temperature to set completely for at least 5 minutes. So I'll kind of use my judgment on when I want to come back to this. We'll be back to this when I feel like it's ready to go. You might be able to get a glimpse at the first shot of the cheesecake here, but we'll be bringing that more into shot in a minute. First, what we need to do is we need to tear a piece of parchment paper and put it over top of the topping. I'm just making sure I can cover up the bottom of the springform pan. That should do. If it ever wants to lay flat, that is. Well, I'll leave that for a second, but what we want to do is we want to invert the topping onto the paper and then separate it from the pan without tearing it. This is going to probably take a little bit of delicate work, but I'm hoping the extra set time I gave it is going to help me out there. So let's see if we can fold this down over the top of it. Easy does it. Let's see if I can get a knife under here, because I know I sprayed this thing down. I know I sprayed it down with a lot of cooking spray. Oh, there we go. Got it up there. I need to make sure we close that. That knife can go over to the dishes. Now we're actually going to bring the cheesecake into shot. I'm going to move that over the burner after giving the counter a quick wipe down, since it looks like we got a little bit of the topping on there. Hopefully I'm not mangling it too much, but I will be hitting this with a dish rag later. So now we'll bring the cheesecake into shot. Then we'll invert the topping again. This time we want the parchment paper side up. Easy does it. Let's get a hand down under it. Right, it's not... We can probably arrange it there. Okay, I think we got that. I'll give my hands a quick wash. Now we're getting ready. Now we're going to be getting ready to cut this. And the way that we're going to cut it, there's a tip in the recipe as written to use unflavored dental floss to slice down the cake and make slices that way. I'm going to try it, but we're going to see about how ridiculous this is going to look. One of you can go ahead and time me on that before I decide.
Give me 1 second.
Don't yell at me. I didn't write the recipe, okay?
No, that's just funny.
It makes sense. I understand it.
Alright. Go.
Yes, you can probably hear in the background, I've got my game buddies over. Then we're going to be getting ready to play Marvel Zombies here, but before we do that, they are going to actually get to weigh in on this as well. How is that? Is that going through all the way?
If not, that's okay.
I don't think I'm slicing... Oh no, actually I am all the way through it. That's moderately surprising. Okay, time.
About 47 seconds.
And I decided that the dental floss actually worked pretty well, surprisingly enough.
It's pretty soft, it makes sense.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this up, and then I'm going to cut this up into 3 slices, and then we'll move over to the table for the taste test. Admittedly, it's a little bit of a weird shot to have me over here, but as you can see, as I mentioned, I'm not alone. I've got Drew and Ethan. You may have heard them chipping in with some commentary earlier, and we are getting ready to play Marvel Zombies today, but business before pleasure, as they say. Although you might be thinking that this is pleasure all around. But what say we dip into this and see what we think of it?
Oh, that's not hard.
No, actually, the dental floss kind of worked pretty well. I thought it was going to be ridiculous. That's why I had Drew time me.
I like it. It's got really good consistency with the actual cream part, and the actual fruit flavoring on top is very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's real good. Absolutely.
Nice and thick,
Yeah.
which is something usually you don't get with cheesecake unless you make it at home. But now I've made a mess on the table.
Well, these tablecloths probably are long due to be washed, so
Yeah, probably. We do use them quite a bit.
yeah. And you're being klutzy with the cake.
I've been dropping things all day.
Well, also a thing that happens. But actually, it seems like they're all happy with how the cheesecake turned out. I was a little bit worried about how the topping was going to set on there, but I think, given how quickly everything was happening here in the afternoon, I was never going to get the topping to set as much as I would have liked to. But everything seemed to turn out well, and that's another episode of Mystical Munchies in the books. Next week, we'll be back to the Saturday upload, and we'll be in a new cookbook next week, but we'll have more on that during Pinot with Phoenix. Before that, though, 1985 and season ticket baseball is going to continue later tonight. We will be on July 8th, 1985. As the Texas Rangers will be at Cleveland Stadium to play the Cleveland Indians. Mike Mason will be going for the Rangers, and Neil Heaton will be on the hill for the Indians. Wednesday, we'll be playing game number 1 on my War Room 10 game challenge as we play Cthulhu Wars Duel by Peterson Games. Next week, also, we're already nearing the end of the winter campaign in Arkham Horror the card game, as we will have the last scenario, Congress of the Keys. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.